members. Oh, good morning. Will the Committee on Infrastructure and Transportation and Technology please come to order? It is 9:02 a.m. on Wednesday, November 19, 2025. I would like to welcome committee members Wire and Dos Santos Tam. Councilmember Tupola will be joining shortly, so is excused for the moment, and Committee Vice Chair Okimoto is excused from today's meeting. Pursuant to Section 92-3.7, the Hawaii Revised Statutes, this meeting will be conducted as a remote meeting by interactive conference technology with the following procedures in effect for the meeting. Members of the public will be allowed to provide oral testimony on all items on the agenda through two ways, remotely and in person, in the council chamber. Remote and in-person testimony will be allowed when the agenda item is taken up. As both English and Hawaiian are official languages of the state of Hawaii, pursuant to Article 15, Section 4 of the Hawaii State Constitution, and Section 1-13 of the Hawaii Revised Statutes, members of the public may testify in either language. For oral testimonies offered in Olelo, Hawaii, additional time, as may be necessary, will be allowed for the testifier to provide an English translation of their testimony. Before testifying, each person shall state their name. Each speaker may not have anyone else read their statement and is limited to a 1-minute presentation on each item. All persons who have registered to testify remotely by video conference or via phone will be called upon first. When your name is called, please monitor your screen and activate your audio feed when prompted. I will then give persons who have not registered an opportunity to offer testimony. Please utilize the raise hand feature on Zoom to be called upon. For those who are joining us via telephone only, please press *9 to indicate your desire to speak. I will identify that person by the last three digits of their phone number. When your phone number is called, please press *6 to unmute yourself when prompted. Some friendly reminders and tips: video conference from a quiet location if possible. If you are also watching the proceedings on Olelo, please mute your television at the time you are called to testify. When the timer on screen reaches 0, please conclude your remarks promptly. Once all the remote testifiers have testified, I will proceed to in-person testimony in the council chamber. Persons who have not registered will be given an opportunity to speak following the oral testimonies of the registered speakers. HR Section 92-3.7 requires all votes at remote meetings to be conducted by roll call unless unanimous. Therefore, I'll first call for objections, and if there are any, I'll call for roll call vote. For those council members participating from outside of the council chamber, in accordance with HR Section 92-3.7, the meeting will automatically recess if we lose audio-visual contact with you and will not be able to reconvene until we re-establish contact. Therefore, please announce beforehand if you will be voluntarily signing out of the meeting. Written testimonies, including the testifier's address, email address, and phone number, will be available to the public as described on the posted agenda. As a courtesy, please turn off all cell phones. With that, we will begin with our informational briefing. I do want to mahalo the members for allowing us to take informational briefing first, as we do have members that are presenting that do have to leave within the hour. With that, we will move to the first informational briefing item, which is the update on the Board of Water Supply's ongoing efforts to address contamination caused by the Red Hill fuel spill. Members, I do want to note that as Kapukaki is in my district, we are nearing the, I don't want to say anniversary, but the 4th year since the last biggest incident and spill occurred at Kapukaki. We know that there are events occurring and efforts continuously, but one none stronger than those at the Board of Water Supply. And currently in my district, in Aiea and in Halawa, we are seeing efforts that are occurring that I know members of the council have been briefed by and on as well as members in my neighborhoods of Aiea and Halava have been briefed upon as well about these efforts. So I wanted to ensure, since infrastructure is a part of my committee purview, that we highlighted that here publicly, and I want to thank Manager Lau as well as Joyce for being able to be here today. And I want to mahalo you for the efforts for outreach, the community meetings, the neighborhood boards, and continuously being out there in our areas to address all these issues. With that, once again, we have Manager and Chief Engineer Ernie Lau as well as Joyce Lin from the Board of Water Supply. And for your information, the departmental communication is the 8/17/2025. For those who wish to see it online or on H&L Docs. I will now then kick it over to the Board of Water Supply for their presentation.
Mahalo, Chair and members. Ernie Lau, Manager and Chief Engineer for the Honolulu Board of Water Supply. I guess I would characterize this as we are approaching the 4th year remembrance of a terrible event that occurred in 2021 when 93,000 people were exposed to fuel-contaminated drinking water in their homes on Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam. This is a time to remember and not to forget because the work is still ahead of us, and there is a need to think about this challenge in an intergenerational approach, that this is not a problem that will be resolved in one generation, in my generation. It'll take generations to come to resolve this. So with that in mind, we are preparing for the intergenerational effort. I'd like to introduce Joyce Lin, a engineer, civil engineer in the manager's office, and she's going to do today's presentation. I'll be available to help in answering questions later. Mahalo, Joyce.
Thank you, Ernie, and good morning, Chair Cordero and committee members. I'm Joyce Lin with the Honolulu Board of Water Supply, providing this Red Hill update. So just a quick overview of the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility. The facility was built in 1940s during the World War II era. There are 20 underground storage tanks built underneath the Red Hill Valley. The tanks itself are 100 feet across, 220 feet tall. So for visual comparisons, a Aloha Tower fits comfortably in one of these tanks. Also a part of this Red Hill fuel storage facility is 2 tunnel system, 1 upper tunnel and 1 lower tunnel access, which connects the fuel tanks to the pump rooms in Pearl Harbor. Within the lower access tunnel, there are pipelines that transports the fuel from the tanks to and from. As you can see on the bottom left, the tank sits just 100 feet above our drinking water aquifer. And in total, it has a when all the tanks are filled, it has capacity to fill 250 million gallons of fuel. The facility first got onto the Board of Water Supply's radar in 2014 when Navy released 27,000 gallons of fuel from Tank 5 during a fuel transfer operation. And as a result of this fuel release, the 2015 Administrative Order on Consent was created, which provided oversight from the EPA and DOH on tank maintenance and groundwater modeling for this general area. This 2015 Administrative Order Consent, or AOC, was entered between the DOH, EPA, the Navy, as well as the Defense Logistic Agency, who takes ownership of the fuels within the tanks. And as you see on this table, we later found out that there were numerous historical releases as early as early 1940s, as early as of the late 1940s, soon after the tanks were created and built. But here we have some of the more recent releases that we are aware of. And so following the 2014 release, the 2015 AOC was created. However, it was unable to prevent the 2021 release that contaminated the Red Hill shaft. In November 20th, 2021, a overhead line broke, creating a massive spill that contaminated the Red Hill shaft, and the fuel got into the Navy's the Joint Base Pearl Harbor's Hickams drinking water system, impacting 93,000 residents that live on and use that water system. As a result, shortly after, the Red Hill shaft was shut off, and the Board of Water Supply, we also have a nearby water facility called the Halava Shaft. We also decided to shut that off because the idea is that we get our drinking water from the same drinking aquifer, and we did not want to draw that potential contaminant towards our drinking water system. So a decision was made to shut down Halava Shaft. And just 1 year after that 2021 spill, another spill happened at the Red Hill facility, which was the November 29, 2022 AFFF concentrate spill, which contains PFAS, or forever chemicals. So there's been quite a bit of releases from this 80-year facility. So as part of the 2015 AOC, the Navy was asked to develop a underground groundwater model to kind of understand the characteristic of how groundwater flows underground. This image here you see is a simulation of how groundwater may move underground. I just wanted to note that this is a work in progress. This groundwater model has not yet been approved by the regulators, but in general, all the colorful lines that you see here are simulations of where contamination may go should there be a release from the Red Hill facility. On the right, with the large black rectangle, that's the Red Hill shaft. Should a contamination occur in that area, you can see that the contamination has a likely west and northwest flow. And this simulation here shows that is actually based off a simulation with the Red Hill shaft off and the Board of Water Supply's Halava shaft on. And it's a little difficult to see, but let me see if I can use this pointer. Okay, can't use it on here. But there is a small, a few simulation lines that leads up to the Halava shaft, which in a way shows that there was potentials for contaminants to reach Halava shaft, and therefore it was a good decision for us to shut off the Halava shaft in response to the shutdown of the Red Hill shaft. Because had we continued to pump our Halava shaft, there is a potential of those contaminants reaching Halava shaft based on this simulated model. Here is a better map showing the Red Hill region. So again, giving you folks a little bit more of a visualization of what had happened. As you can see here, the Red Hill shaft, notated as the red triangle, that is what was contaminated in November 2021. As a result, that water source was quickly shut off. And nearby, just north of the Red Hill shaft, is our Halava shaft. This is close to just 1 mile away. And as a result of the shutdown of the Red Hill shaft, we decided to shut off the Halava shaft because we did not want those potential contaminants reaching our drinking water and our ratepayers, our consumers. And shortly after that, contamination was detected at the IAEA Halava shaft. This is the Navy's operated IAEA Halava shaft. And as a result, the Board of Water Supply decided that we also don't want potential contaminants reaching those nearby wells that just up gradient. So we have our Halava wells and IAEA wells. And so following the potential westwardly trend, these nearby wells have been, we've been doing more regular sampling to try to track and monitor any potential contaminants. Also as an effort, as a response to the fuel spill, the Navy had started constructing monitoring wells to capture water data in our aquifer, trying to see where the potential plume may be going. Those are depicted as the red circles on this map. And also at the same time, the Board of Water Supply, we've been trying to also develop our own monitoring well system outside of the Red Hill Bulk Fuel Storage Facility. As you can see, most of the Navy's monitoring wells are located within their facility itself. And our thought at the Board of Water Supply is that we're always concerned of potential valley flow across the Halava Valley and reaching our Halava shaft. So we decided to sort of expand that monitoring well network and try to look for potential locations far west as near our Camilo wells.
Joyce, may I ask if you could go to the current projects that are that have started or will start in the areas of Halava Valley and Aya Heights as well now?
Sure. So most of the monitoring wells that the Board of Water Supply, most of the Board of Water Supply monitoring wells that depicted on this map, they're in different phases of either design, construction, or has completed construction. I wish I can use this pointer right now, but so we have approximately 5 monitoring wells that have been completed in construction. So we've been sampling those. Those are near the Halava Correction Facility, Halava District Park, Animal Quarantine Station at DOA, Department of Agriculture. And we have some monitoring wells further west. So we have a few that we're planning for near Camilo wells as shown on this map here. And we have a few as well near our Halava shaft that is currently in design and should be going out for bid earlier towards the end of this fiscal year, or we hope we can get it out as soon as we can. From the Navy's standpoint, they're trying to actually reactivate their sources because the Navy's Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickams water system, they rely on 3 wells to provide drinking water. So the Red Hill Shaft and IAEA Halava Shaft, as well as a third source, which is Waiawa Shaft, that's further out in the west side in Pearl City Industrial Area. The Navy has been trying to bring the IAEA Halava Shaft back online, as well as the Red Hill Shaft, as to kind of provide redundancy to their water system. From what we know, they have applied to reactivate their source, the IAEA Halava Shaft, with the DOH this year. They did install treatment at near their IAEA Halava Shaft, treating for PFAS, TPH, and PAH. And then also at the Red Hill Shaft, they actually is going in for a temporary treatment system as well as a permanent treatment system to bring that source back online. And we were just informed that as part of the continuing resolution in the federal government, $141 million was allotted to the Red Hill to help with the remediation, specifically with the treatment system at Red Hill. So as a result of the 2022 AFFF, or aqueous film forming foam concentrate release, which contains PFAS, or per and polyfluoroalkyl substances, which also known as forever chemicals. There is a PFAS investigation that started at Red Hill under the CERCLA regulation. They identified two areas of interest at Red Hill, Area A and B. Area A is where they had the 1,300 gallons of AFFF concentrate spill that occurred in 2022. And Area B is a larger area that consists of the old oily waste disposal facility that was used as a sort of a disposal pit back in when it was in operation, to kind of where they just dumped the sludge and residuals from the bottoms of the tank while they cleaned it. So here you can see some slides that was provided during the Pearl Harbor, Hickam, and Kailua Restoration Advisory Board meeting that we had in August. They started groundwater sampling at these two areas. Here you'll see some of the sample results from Area A. So what we were told during the RAB meeting was that Area A is relatively new. There's not as much monitoring wells in this area, but some of the shallow well testing that they did collect did detect PFAS. In the table on the very right side, I know it's very small, I apologize for that, but those PSL is project screening levels. Those are the levels that they're screening to match what their results to. And you'll see that there are some detections as high as 1,300 for the PFHXA and 240 for PFHXS, and for PFOA and PFOS as high as 29 and 290 against a 4. And again, Area B, this is the area closer to, actually right above Red Hill Shaft, actually. And you'll see there's a lot more developed monitoring wells in this area, and you'll see lots of detections of PFAS above the screening level in the shallow groundwater monitoring wells as well as the deep groundwater monitoring wells. So in April 2024, PFAS National Primary Drinking Water Regulation was finalized, and MCLs, or maximum contaminant levels, were established for the list of PFAS here on the table. PFOA and PFOS MCLs are at 4, and the remainder is at 10, and a hazard index of 1. What this means is that drinking water operators have until April 29 to be in compliance, where this ruling becomes enforceable. In the meantime, we have actually at the Board of Water Supply been sampling for PFAS as early as 2020, when there was a regulation to kind of look for potential contaminants. So we have actually been detecting PFAS near the MCL at our Camilo wells, which, if you remember earlier from the map, it was on that source that's far on the west side. So we decided in May to actually shut down this source. We didn't want to provide that water to anyone before we come up with a solution. So long term, we'd like to design and construct a permanent drinking water treatment system at our Camilo Wells station, our facility. In short term, because we do still need this source to help supply water to this area, to the neighborhood, IEA and Halawa neighborhood. We are installing a temporary water treatment system. On the bottom right is what we have using granular activated carbon, GAC for short, to help treat some of the PFAS contaminants that we're picking up at this well. We started construction at the site already, and we're working on connecting the pipelines to the source and the treatment vessels. So in conclusion, Red Hill is not POW. In 2023, 2024, they removed all the, gravity defueled all of the fuel within the tanks at Red Hill. However, that just only removed a future the potential of a catastrophic failure and spill in the future. However, what is not accounted for, and we're still working on very hard, is to identify where those past releases have gone to. And we really need to find a way to identify where those fuel and releases went to so that we can clean up our water and also our land. And it's been in this, during discussions with the regulators as well as the Navy, we realized that the full remediation of all these known and also possibly unknown releases will take years, if not decades. So it's gonna be a long journey in this remediation effort. We also know that we'll need a lot more investigation and also studies into how the groundwater moves underground, and where also just understanding the geology underneath the fuel tanks better so that we know we could know where these past releases may have gone to. And also just PFAS is a big issue, and it's an emerging contaminant that we need to really understand a little bit more in terms of treatment and also how we can handle this contaminant in the future. And just little information for you to take home with you is on the right, we have resources for you to stay informed of this ongoing Red Hill issue. We have the Navy Closure Task Force. There's actually 2 websites that provides really good information on their ongoing efforts at Red Hill. Also, our regulators and the Board of Water Supply, we have a lot of information on our website, but if you're ever curious and want to have ask more questions, feel free to reach out to us. That concludes my presentation today. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Lin. Members, I'm going to ask if there's testimony first, and then we'll go to discussion and questions. We will now proceed with remote testimony. We do not have any registered remote testifiers, but is there anyone online who wishes to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Thank you. Seeing none, we will now move to in-person testimony. We don't have any registered in-person testifiers, but is there anyone, we don't see anyone in person who wishes to testify. So we will now close testimony, and we will now go back to discussion and questions for the Board of Water Supply. Members, I don't know if Councilmember Wire or Dos Santos Tam have questions initially, but I will ask questions, just 2 questions. But first off, thank you very much, both of you, for being here and for doing this presentation. This really helps with the update. I know that you did already meet with the members of the council and many residents already, but just for the public, if for the grander scale of what the wells serve, how many residents, businesses, just people in general are affected or are served by the different wells that you all are monitoring, from the Ka'amilo wells to the Halawa and Halawa shaft, as well as the Aiea and Halawa wells?
Do you know?
I don't.
You can John
sorry.
Kempo.
Sorry, Councilmember. The exact population that we serve, I'm not sure the number. I think it's maybe 50 or 60,000 people. But it's the folks that are living from the Halawa industrial area going west all the way to Kaunohi Street, so where Pearl Ridge is at. And then also going up Halawa Heights, Aiea, Aiea Heights. So that's the service area where this water from Ka'amila wells could eventually get to. Right now, because we shut down Aiea wells and Halava wells that normally serve that Aiea system, we're relying on Kaunohi wells, Aiea Gulch wells as our primary source, and we need the Ka'amila wells back in service to help be able to provide reliable water service to that community.
Thank you. And I know that in the beginning of, since the November 2021 spill, we heard that the effects could possibly even go east if those wells on the east side of Kapukaki was affected, right? Is that still a threat right now?
We still have concerns that our wells, that Board of Water Supply wells to the east of Kapukaki, where the Red Hill underground tanks are, and all the fuel pipelines, that there could be migration across Halava Valley. We are, just for your information, you know, we mentioned about PFAS detections at Ka'amila wells. We're also detecting PFAS at our Halava shaft, which is shut off, but we continue to take water samples from it. So we're detecting on a regular basis PFAS there. Some of the same PFAS that the Ka'amila wells is detecting, PFOS. And also we're detecting PFAS at our Halava wells. And I just want to note that the Navy at their Aiea Halava shaft, which is closer to St. Elizabeth's Church area, they detected PFAS in the shaft water and I think also in the monitor wells nearby. So that's one of the reasons why they, Joyce mentioned, they installed already a temporary water treatment system, and they're seeking permission from the health department to activate that and be able to treat that water and send it into the water system, their water system of Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam.
Thank you, Manager Lau. And if the regulators reject that treatment of the water and there's no further access to either wells or bringing, or the Navy's not able to bring their Aiea Halava shaft under the Navy's purview back on, then how would the businesses, the Joint Base Pearl Harbor Hickam, and even on the Board of Water Supply system then get access? Will it just be tapping into, like is already happening, into other wells? Will it have to go across the Ko'olaus to then the other side? What would be, I guess, plan B, C, D, E, all the way to plan Z?
So I just want to note for clarification, and I'm sorry we didn't clarify this from the beginning. The Navy's water sources,
Yes.
their Waiava shaft, their Aiea Halava wells, and their Red Hill shaft supply the Navy's water system, which is completely separate from the Board of Water Supply system.
Right. But what if
So
it was all, like say, the Navy's water system was not allowed to operate, and then at the same time, Board of Water Supplies wells that are shut down aren't allowed to reopen or are going to remain shut down.
Right.
So what is our
plan is actually, because we have a water system that's connected, so the Honolulu water system actually gets water as far as potentially Waipahu, pumping water toward the east, all the way out to Honolulu and all the way out to Hawaii. Halava shaft was one of the biggest sources to supply Honolulu, so that's shut off. So what we're doing is other wells we still have in operation, they're having to work a little harder, pump a little more water to make up the lost capacity. And the Aiea Halava system, the Ka'amila wells used to serve Honolulu, used to actually pump water into a large pipeline that led into Honolulu, but we kind of turned it around and made it more of a water supply for the local system in the Aiea Halava area because they were really severely short on well capacity.
Understood. And I know that you both mentioned how it will take generations to really completely remediate the effects of the spill. And I was wondering, what would complete remediation look like if we are like 300 years down the road?
You know, I wish I knew. I think there's going to be perhaps some of it will be naturally occurring, a natural degradation of some of the contaminants. But PFAS, and that might be some of the hydrocarbons over time, but it depends on how much and where it's located, if it will actually degrade over time. We've heard anecdotally that in some areas, like in the Pacific, where there was petroleum spills in the 1940s, that some of that fuel is still found in the natural environment intact and hasn't all disappeared. So the big unknown, we don't know the magnitude and types of releases at this facility that was in operation from 1943 to just a few years ago. And it could store up to 250 million gallons. What did they store there, and what leaked out of that facility? And we know from Navy reports it could be something called bunker fuel that used to power ships back in World War II. Motor gasoline, aviation gas, jet fuel, diesel, a variety of fuels there. They also, we understand that the military adds additives to these fuels, and we don't know the nature and scope of these additives that leak there. And then the other part that I think is kind of a big question mark in our mind was the area where they used to have to clean the tanks periodically from fuel or residual fuel or sludge in the tanks, and also water that's building up in the tanks. And they used to dump it out of adit number 3 in this area near Area B called the Oily Waste Disposal Site. And that site was basically a hole in the ground initially where it was unlined and they would just dump residual waste products. We know that AFFF was stored there at least from the 60s. We don't know the details of its use, but we also know from the Navy's own reports that PFAS is not only in AFFF, it's in other materials that are used by the military, cleaning materials, plating materials, other things. So that's kind of a mystery of where the sources of PFAS contamination are at Red Hill.
Thank you. Thank you, Manager Lau. And thank you again, Joyce. Members, are there any other questions? Oh, we have Councilmember Wire.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Chair. Just a couple. Appreciate the presentation and all the work you're doing. I was just curious, first, when we're looking at the PFAS detections, if it follows that, if it's going to be found at the shallow groundwater monitoring, does it follow that it would be found at the deep groundwater monitoring, or is there an additional level of concern that it's present in both?
So I thank you for pointing that out, Councilmember. So that's in Area B near the Oily Waste Disposal Site. They found actually shallow groundwater. Somehow there's like a low permeability layer that helps to capture the water and before it gets to the aquifer below. So that shallow groundwater was pretty heavy, and you can see from the test results, pretty high levels of PFAS contamination. And then you also have contamination at the deeper monitor wells in that same area that go down to the deep groundwater, which is the same aquifer system that we also pump. Not as high, but what you have is a heavily contaminated area at a shallow depth in the shallow groundwater and a less contaminated area here. You know what that tells me? And I'm not an expert, but it looks like the source of PFAS contamination can't be blamed on the industrial park in Halava Valley, but it's really originating from that Red Hill site and that facility over its 80-year history. And that is continuing to supply contamination that is now, as it rains hard, the rain seeps down, the shallow groundwater might start to percolate down, or if it's a layer like a cup that's capturing the shallow groundwater when it rains and stores it there. And it rains hard and it could spill over and leak down to the deeper groundwater aquifer below. So it's potentially a continuing source of contamination of our deep groundwater aquifer.
Okay, I appreciate that. And then we're doing, because I know we're working on the design and construction for the permanent wastewater treatment system installing the temporary granular activated carbon. So, I mean, we have PFAS at other locations on Oahu too. So what's the systems over there? Is it already implemented in the broader water treatment system for PFAS?
We already have some activated carbon treatment systems in central Oahu. I think about a dozen
Yeah.
sites that treat for legacy agricultural pesticides. That activated carbon is useful to treat some of the older types of PFAS chemicals. But we are doing studies right now to look at other locations because we have about at least a dozen sites now that we've detected PFAS at different levels, different types of PFAS, doing the studies to determine where we're going to put in, do we need to put in water treatment systems. And right now, so we're looking at a permanent water treatment system at Kameala Wells. We're going to install a temporary water treatment system, hopefully get it in operation early next year with the approval of the Department of Health. But we are also looking at a treatment system, I think, at our Pearl City Shaft and our Mauna Loa wells also because of PFAS detections.
That makes sense. And then the others would remain the charcoal filtering.
Where there is an existing charcoal filter or GAC system, we'll keep those in operation because of the legacy pesticides. It has a kind of the ancillary benefit of also removing some of the PFAS chemicals. But even in those sites, we might have to enhance or add treatment systems. We have some wells that, like our Mauna Loa wells, no treatment system there right now, except for chlorination. So we may have to put more treatment systems in the future. I just want to, I don't want to panic people, but I think we have to be real about PFAS. It was developed in the 1940s, and there's, I think, over 12,000 different types of man-made PFAS chemicals. The regulations and test methods only test for a small subset of that 12,000 plus PFAS chemicals. And that's only what's available right now. And the knowledge about health effects, we only have what we have right now. But I anticipate in the future that as more studies get done, as the chemical analytical methods improve, that other PFAS chemicals could be regulated also by the US EPA and our Department of Health. And that as the human health effects become more well-known, we may see the need for more treatment systems, possibly different types of treatment systems in the future.
I appreciate that. Is that something that also is informed by state and local research, or would we be relying purely on federal analysis? I know they set a lot of the overarching standards, and
the EPA regulations require the water utilities, the public water systems, to actually do the analysis. And we don't do it ourselves because we don't have the laboratory capability to do PFAS testing. But we send it to a EPA certified laboratory on the mainland. So public water systems are required to test and report their results to the Department of Health, who shares that with the EPA. So going forward, we're relying on our own test data. I think the EPA or Department of Health may do some testing of their own. I think the DOH did do a survey of PFAS occurrences in landfills, wastewater, and airports around the state, I think in the other year. That report is available publicly. And they found, PFAS in wastewater. They found PFAS in landfill leachate. So those are all potential sources of PFAS contamination.
I appreciate that. So in addition to the detection, I was just curious, who we're largely relying on for the research and the data on the expanded impact, right, of better identifying all these additional chemicals you say that are probably already there.
So we embarked a few years ago on something called a source water protection plan. And the initial phase of that plan was to actually inventory all kinds of contaminating activities, past and present, that we could identify on this island, especially those that occur above a freshwater resource or close to one of our wells. And there are a lot. There are also, and I want to be careful because I really support the military. They defend our freedoms, but military bases have been notorious not only in Hawaii, but across the other states, but across the world too, of being not the best stewards of the environment and actually creating contamination. If you look on Oahu, where are the military installations? You know, Pearl Harbor, which is basically a Superfund site, the Red Hill facility, other military installations like in Waiava. Right now is ongoing investigation of PFAS contamination at the National Guard training facility there in the Pearl City industrial area. But you have Schofield, Wheeler, Camp Smith, other locations. That's our effort is to actually try to identify potential sources of PFAS that are currently impacting our wells. And as we go out to develop new wells, we're trying to understand where contamination sites are so we can hopefully avoid placing a new well right near a contaminated site. So that was part of the efforts, our source water protection efforts.
No, that makes perfect sense. And appreciate you're always measured and data driven, so appreciate that. And I know all the caveats are just recognizing that we want to take it seriously. I guess the last question I had, kind of still on topic in terms of overarching water systems, could we just update real quick on the desalinization project and maybe just concisely, because I know we have a lot in the committee, but just wanted to double check to make sure I understood, like how much of the EVA plane is that water supposed to be replacing, or is that going to be just incorporated into also groundwater that comes in? And then being a pilot, are we still evaluating additional or expanded use of desalinization processes?
Yeah, thank you. Just an important point. Right now for drinking water for our community, we're 100% dependent on underground aquifers, or what we call groundwater, through wells, shafts, or tunnel systems. The seawater desalination plant is the first step by the Board of Water Supply to actually desalinate seawater and make it fresh. And that's in the Campbell Industrial Park area. And it's about probably going to be about 2 million gallons a day. What we think is that will probably be, we'll treat the water there, freshen that seawater to a point where it's suitable for drinking, connect it to the water system in Campbell Industrial Park. It'll supply probably most of the park and some of the areas just adjacent to the Campbell Industrial Park.
Appreciate that. And then that's next spring?
You know, we're working really hard, and we knew this was going to be a challenge from the get-go. The permitting process, dealing with land access issues, we're going through that process, and we're making headway. But, you know, some of the challenges was the site that we are looking at to develop the seawater plant was land that was given to us from the closure of Barbers Point Naval Air Station under the BRAC. In the meantime, the Fish and Wildlife Service, without our real understanding, actually designated that site as critical habitat. So we're working, making progress with the Fish and Wildlife Service to actually help with some restoration of some endangered species, a coco, and I think there was one more there.
Mahalo, appreciate that. Thank you, Manager and Chief Engineer, Ms. Lynn. Mahalo, Chair.
Mahalo.
Thank you, Councilmember Wire. Councilmember DeSantis, do you have a question? Okay. Thank you, Manager Lau. Ms. Lynn, thank you very much for the presentation. We really appreciate it. Thank you. Before we go to our next presentation, and as we let thank you. And as we let the next departments set up their presentation, I would like to welcome, we have from Assets High School, from Asset School here with us. I don't know, are you a part of a particular class? Oh. Okay. Okay, awesome. So we have a photography mentorship class here with Asset School. Thank you very much for joining us, and if we could just welcome them to the council chambers. And wait for the camera, guys. You're on TV. Okay, thank you all for being here. And everyone smile because they're taking photos of you guys. Okay, forgot where I was. All right, so next item, we have the informational briefing, item number 2. And, okay, are they set up? Oops. We have the overview of the manual of uniform traffic control devices and the installation of traffic control devices on Oahu. I do want to take up both items 2 and 3 together, which means for testimony, I will allow for a minute per item. And so I will take up both items number 2 and 3 together, which will be strategies to address Oahu's increased traffic fatalities and increased roadway safety. So once again, members, we are taking up items number 2 and 3, and their testimony will reflect such, where I will allow for a minute per testimony per item, for testimony per item, to equate to 2 minutes. I will go with testimony first, Director Morton, and I think Chief Vanek. Oh, there. Oh, hi, Chief Vanek, and we will go with testimony first. With that, I don't have any registered remote testifiers, but is there anyone online who wishes to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, seeing none, we will now move to in-person testimony. Is there anyone in person who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none, we will now move to, we will now close testimony, and we will go to the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices and Installation of Traffic Control Devices on Oahu presentation, as well as the strategies to address Oahu's increased traffic fatalities and increased roadway safety. DTS does have a presentation that leads from MUTCD to traffic safety, so we'll let them go first and then go with HPD. I do want to note that I do want to mahalo you for being here. I know that we don't get to talk about this manual often. I know that we see it when we get our riser request for service investigation reports back from the departments as to why certain signs or certain things can't be out on the road, and what dictates the city to be placing, I guess, traffic and transit safety devices out there. And I know that this was of interest to certain members, so I do wish that they were here, more members were here, but this lengthy presentation is available for all online as Communication 820-2025, as well as 817. And so we'll kick it over to Director Roger Morton from the Department of Transportation Services for hopefully a brief presentation for both. We do have your presentation here, and then we'll go to Acting Chief Vanek. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Cordero, members of the committee. We will try and be brief, but we have, and I know we have 6 items on the agenda today, so we're going to try to plow through them. These are important topics, both the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Device and its history and how we use it, also the traffic safety update. I will have my Akamai staff, 3 of them, that will provide different portions of this. First of all, we'll have our traffic engineer, Kelly Akasaki, who will talk about the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. And then our Complete Streets Administrator, Renee Espial, will talk about our Complete Street program and how it works into traffic safety. And then we'll give a little bit of information on our Vision Zero program and how we can enhance safety going forward, and that'll be presented by Jermaine Salim Hagihara. So without taking up any more time, I'll ask Kelly to come up and start talking about the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices.
Thank you, and we're always so lucky whenever we get to have Kelly before us.
Thank you. Good morning, committee, council members. Again, Kelly Akasaki. I am the Transportation Engineering Division Chief at DTS. And I'm here to kind of explain what the MUTCD, or Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, is and how we use it. So, on the far left is the cover sheet of the 11th edition of our Manual on Uniform Traffic Control Devices, or MUTCD. Came out in December of 23. The first MUTCD came out in 1935, and it was by the American Association of State Highway Officials. And what it did was it established standardized traffic control devices to enhance roadway safety on any public road within the United States. So it uses national standards governing all design, installation, maintenance, and use of any traffic control. So this could be signage, markings, signals, or any other devices that are on our street highways, which include pedestrian and bicycle facilities. So each state has 2 years to adopt the current edition. So it came out in December of 23. In January of 24, the state DOT set out a memo that as of October 1st, 2024, the state of Hawaii has adopted and has to follow all of the new revisions in the 11th edition of the MUTCD. So I brought it with me. So as you can see, it's a pretty hefty book. It's pretty big. As you can see, there are 9 chapters in it, but it's well written. So if you can look online, you can find it online. It's there for everyone. It's broken down into 9 different chapters: signage, striping, even signals. It has the signal warrants in there. Sometimes council members ask us, what are the warrants to warrant a signal? It's all in there. There's a section for schools. There's a section for bikeways. There's even a section for railroads and light rail. And the new section is Chapter 5, which is traffic controls for automated vehicles, which we don't have yet in the city or the state. My next slide. So what's the whole purpose of the MUTCD? The basic principles behind it is just to have standard warrants, studies, application, installation for the whole United States to follow. The main purpose of the MUTCD is to have uniform and consistent traffic controls, whatever state you're in. We get many claims against the city and the state, and a lot of the attorneys will refer back to the MUTCD to determine how did we put in our standards, or what do we put in, and that it follows national guidelines. So it's just a standard guidelines for all of the United States to follow. What's different about the 11th edition is that this new edition puts a lot of focus on our vulnerable road users. So what it does is it does more of the safety systems approach, which is a little more proactive instead of reactive. More attention is given to the bicycles, the pedestrians, as well as transit riders. So you'll see some of those new features in the new edition. And then again, as technology improves, the last edition before the 23 edition was 2009. So as technology evolves, there's a lot of new things that are in there that we have to update and also include in our standards. And as you can see in the next slide, some of these things include RFBs, or rectangular rapid flashing beacons. These were not in any of the MUTCs before. It is in the 23 edition. Green paint bicycle markings. Again, also not in the 2009 edition, but in this edition. What we were following for the last maybe 10 years from now was the NACTO guidelines, only because MUTCD didn't come out with actual green paint guidelines. And then what they most recently came up with also are larger signs. So when you have multi-lane roads, because of multi-lane threats, they have also increased some of the warning signs that we put out there currently. So lastly, what does this mean for us? It means that any new project that we put out or that developers put out have to follow the new guidelines. It means that any project that comes in for traffic control plans also have to follow the new revisions of the traffic control, whether it's detours or lane closures. A lot of those things have changed as well. Those are temporary traffic controls. And it also means that DTS has to go back and maybe evaluate some of our older signs that are already existing and what we can do to upgrade them. It doesn't mean that we have to do them all at once, but as we look at each one, we have an opportunity to upgrade them to match, whether it's the larger signs or different paints or different striping. And then again, as technology improves, with RFBs and automated vehicles, it gives us a chance, to update our systems as well, to incorporate these things that are coming in. I mean, the vehicles are faster, they're quieter, they're smart vehicles. We have to incorporate all of these things as well. So that is the last slide for MTCD. I don't know if you want to take questions or if you want to wait until the full presentation is over.
Members, looking to your concurrence. Okay, we'll keep it going.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Thanks for having us. Renee Espio, Complete Streets Administrator for City and County of Honolulu. This thing is not stay up. Thank you for having us on this topic today. This is, of course, a topic that we live and breathe every day, but is not always a public dialogue that we have. So we really appreciate the opportunity to come kind of share some of the things that we're trying, some of the data we're seeing, and how we're trying to collectively solve our traffic safety problems. I did want to start with a reminder about our Complete Streets Law for two reasons. The law itself was an outcome of advocacy in 2012, passing a bill that was basically a referendum on how the city and county had sort of operated its streets before that point. I think it was a strong message that it is no longer acceptable to only design, operate our streets for motor vehicles, and there are a lot of other people trying to use our roads. That moment for city and county was a big turning point for us, I think, philosophically, but of course, we're still trying to address the transportation system that we created since the post-World War era, where we really focused on vehicles and moving them quickly through our cities, that we're still sort of in that same moment, infrastructure speaking, right? Transportation projects do take so long, and so we're really still trying to sort of capture the essence of what this bill encompassed. The second thing I just wanted to remind you is that all transportation projects at the city do have to address safety, right? It's number one there, and it says that all projects shall do that. This is a graphic that shows our Complete Streets team at the city. There are 4 main departments that are called out in ordinance, and then we also collaborate really closely with DPR and our urban forestry folks. We work together to create safer streets. I would argue the biggest benefit and the biggest outcome of Complete Streets is not necessarily the improvements that we've made, but the process improvements that we have in getting our road departments to collaborate and work together. And as we deal with this traffic safety challenge, it's really been an asset for us to be able to work together across departments to sort of magnify our impact with everything that we do. So as a reminder, we do meet twice a month, all these separate departments, to talk about operation issues, projects, planning. We really do have safety sort of first and foremost, particularly for our most vulnerable road users, sort of on our agenda. Those are the issues we're dealing with. Pedestrian lighting being blocked by trees, pedestrian crosswalks not having clear markings, things like that we work through collaboratively. We also have a checklist that is a evolving document. Every time we have a big project, most of those are paving projects by our facility maintenance or design and construction department. We go through this checklist together and see how this project can make the road safer. And I'm going to show you the plans that we reference to do that. The Oahu Bike Plan is usually one of the first ones that we flip open. Obviously, the recommendations in this plan are to make biking safer on Oahu, primarily by building protected facilities. We do have a mature bike program. We have dedicated funding for this. Kelly runs this program, and they build great projects, and they get federal funds to do so. We're really excited about our upcoming plan to do the 30-mile shared use path along the south shore of Oahu. We've just gotten the consultant kind of on board, and we're looking forward to kicking that process off to kind of knit together some of the facilities we already have and create new facilities to really create safe off-street paths for folks who are biking or on one of the many new mobility devices we see on our island. Of course, as we've shared before, the safety of our keiki going to and from school is of utmost importance to the city. We recently got funding in a partnership with the Oahu MPO to do a Safe Routes to School plan, which will be an exciting new milestone for our program. But we're really proud of the work that we do under this program. As we've shared before, we have a very long list of projects that we're working on traffic safety in school areas. And we, of course, work with you guys closely on that and really value that partnership. The other plan we look at when we're filling out our checklist, we look at our new pedestrian plan. The pedestrian plan covered two things: high pedestrian injury locations. So every time we've got a paving project or another big project, we're making sure, is this on a high pedestrian injury corridor at a high pedestrian injury intersection? If so, what can we do about it? And it also, of course, prioritized our 900 miles of missing sidewalk, which we are really excited to have started a new program to address. Unlike our Bikeway program, which has been around for a while, the city has traditionally not had a parallel program to build missing walkways and invest in pedestrian infrastructure, but we know that sidewalks are related to pedestrian safety. So we're really happy with your support and our leadership support to have started this new program. And then finally, before I pass it off to Jermaine to talk more about our Vision Zero plan, which we also reference very closely, I did want to give a little preview of a project that we are going to be starting to take public next year. We applied for a federal grant to do planning and conceptualize different ways to change the roadways that you see highlighted here in green. These are Tier 1 high pedestrian injury corridors identified in the Oahu pedestrian plan for which we did not already have complete streets plans, like say a North King Street or somewhere that we've worked long before. We have gotten our consultant team on board, and we're planning public outreach activities in 2026 on this. Okay, I want to pass it off to Jermaine Salim Hagihara. She's our Vision Zero coordinator who helped us sort of finish up the plan and is really helping us implement the plan, particularly through a lot of quick build solutions.
Hi everyone, I'm Jermaine Salim. Thank you for having us. So I wanted to start with this slide. As we all know, 2025 has been an especially closer. Can I get the mic a little higher? Okay. 2025 has been an especially awful year for traffic deaths here on Oahu. As of today, we have 74 traffic deaths. 30% of our traffic deaths are people who are walking, and of those people walking, 50% of them are older than 65. This year, 2025, we also lost 3 children. This chart on this slide shows the fiscal year 2025, which has very slightly different total numbers, although the trends stay largely the same. We use this chart in our Complete Streets annual report. The data that went into our Vision Zero action plan from 2015 to 2020 shows that consistently pedestrians and people traveling on 2 wheels make up a disproportionate amount of traffic deaths, and that our families 65 and over are overly represented in these crashes. The data that we collected as part of that plan also showed that for every fatality, we have about 5 serious injuries. So I haven't highlighted that in these charts, but that is, injuries that have changed people's lives. So I'm going to very quickly go over the factors that go into the crashes that we found in the Vision Zero action plan. This helps us to iterate our strategy for addressing traffic deaths. We do focus on pedestrians because the data shows that pedestrians are so disproportionately impacted. Our data showed that almost 70% of pedestrian or bicycle crashes occur at intersections, but that crashes between intersections are more likely to be fatal or serious. And The most frequent crash scenarios involve pedestrians crossing in a crosswalk and a motor vehicle proceeding either straight ahead or turning left into that pedestrian. Left-hand collisions occur more likely at signalized intersections, while crashes involving the vehicles going straight are more likely to occur at an unsignalized or uncontrolled location. Our data also identified factors that lead to fatal and serious crashes. The main crash factors are speed, inattention, and impairment. But increasing speed has a direct relationship to the increasing chance of fatality or serious injury. Because speed has an exponential relationship to kinetic energy and hence the impact a person suffers in the event of a crash. We keep talking about speed because I like to highlight that even the best driver cannot control everything when it comes to speed. When it comes to braking distance, sometimes it really is just physics. Okay, so the Vision Zero Action Plan utilizes the safe systems approach we've been talking about today. It recognizes that we all behave imperfectly, and it tries to reduce the harm and the severity of the crash. We want a system that allows human mistakes and proactively identifies and addresses risks. So each of the safe systems has a goal, and each of the goals has a slew of actions. There's many actions. We're not going to go into it today. But the idea is that Vision Zero is going to approach the issue of traffic safety from multiple angles collaboratively. So as an example, for this Safe Streets action, we have these goals, and then each goal's, Safe Streets element, we have these goals, and then each goal has the actions that we have identified as part of the plan. We also set up a system to track our work. This dashboard allows us to filter crash data for mode type, location, demographics, and more. And this allows us to identify where we can put our limited resources and also track how effectively our implementation is. Our data collection before and after is pretty robust, and I will talk about that more in a bit. Okay. So part of the Safe Systems actions includes reviewing law, policy, and procedure. As you all know, the city worked with you folks to pass Bill 44 regarding speed limits in school zones. And we also worked on, and the DTS is now focused on a phased implementation of school zone signage changes over the coming years. The city also worked with City Council on Bill 52 to better regulate electric bicycles, and I believe we're coming back for this in 2026. We worked on educational campaign materials, and we've been bringing these to outreach events in the last year. You might have seen these in your neighborhood. And our project work continues. The selection or prioritization of projects can be linked to existing plans, as Renee has gone over, as well as to rehabilitation, maintenance, or other work that may be happening. We also package projects that are part of our plans, and some of these larger projects can be linked to federal funding cycles. So here are some of the quick build project types that we've been looking at in this year. Sometimes we need to reallocate space in the right-of-way to improve safety. Here's an example of Kamehameha 4 road fronting Sanford Dole Middle School. This road went from 2 lanes in each direction to 1 lane in each direction, plus that center turn lane. Ultimately, this improves safety along the street. It reduces the multiple threat crashes, total number of crashes, as you can see in this chart that we have on the left. The pedestrian crashes also reduced, and this type of repurposing can improve traffic operation, sort of reduces that slalom, quick change lane event, and maintains better flow in the through lanes. In this case, we also gave us the opportunity to add bike lanes, which makes sense in this area. This particular project is actually going through another iteration thanks to outreach from our community there. So we're working on implementing pedestrian refuge islands at Hihio Place and Kino Street in front of the school. The bike network is detailed in the Oahu Bike Plan, and the city has been busy in the last year with build additions all over, including the extension of the King Street bike lane, which is more than 10 years old now. King Street is one of our high injury corridors with lots of busy intersections, and there was some concern at the time about adding a 2-way bike lane in the mix. The before and after data for King Street bike lane showed that pedestrian crashes on the King Street corridor reduced significantly after the installation of the bike lane. So that's the kind of ancillary benefit of this bike project. We get a lot of requests for speed humps. Speed humps and raised crosswalks. On the left there is the ones that have been completed in the near past, and then on the right is coming to a road or arterial near you. And then the raised crosswalk study, I did want to spend a minute on this. The data-driven process is an important part of Vision Zero, and so we want to be able to understand the nuances of what is working and what can be improved. The raised crosswalk study evaluated the safety impacts of raised crosswalks on arterial roadways on Oahu installed by HDOT in 2023. This is 10 primary study locations ranging from 2 to 5 travel lanes, relatively busy. The only intervention at the study location was the implementation of the raised crosswalk and the associated signs and markings. The study found that these raised crosswalks resulted in an increase of drivers stopping for pedestrians that went from 62 to 88% on average, and a 12% overall reduction in the 85th percentile speed. The study also included a supplemental safety evaluation of 9 raised crosswalks that were installed in 2019. These arterial roadway study locations range from 4 to 5 travel lanes, and none of them had medians. These raised crosswalks resulted in a reduction in pedestrian injury crashes from 0.33 per location per year to 0, and then a reduction in all injury crashes from 0.69 per location per year to 0.15. So we believe that the raised crosswalks are an effective tool for further study and use. This year we also piloted 2 quick-build solar RRFB, rectangular flashing beacons, in high injury locations. On the right there at School Street and Ahonui, School Street's identified as a priority safety corridor in the pedestrian plan. This area has frequent transit and high ridership numbers, a density of local businesses near Kokua-Kalihi Valley Comprehensive Health Center, and is within a half-mile of Dole Middle School, Kalihi-Waina Elementary School, Felton Elementary, Kuhio Park Terrace, Kuhio Homes, and Kalihi Valley District Park. We also, at this location, the driver yield rates to pedestrians increased from 60% to 87%, which we consider a highly effective result for this pilot. At the same time, we also did a pilot solar RRFB at Date and La'au Street, which is that picture on the left. At that time, there wasn't a crosswalk in use there, so we didn't do a before study for driver yield rates. But we recognize, but Date Street is on our priority walkways, and this location is a quarter mile to Kaimuki High School, Alawai Elementary School, Prince Jonah Kuhio Elementary School, Date Street Mini Park, and Iolani School, and has transit on the corridor. The initial results have shown a very high yield compliance at this RRFB as well. Upcoming, we have longer-term plans for sidewalk construction along Date Street as part of the federally funded project that Renee was talking about. When we don't have pots of millions of dollars for walkway projects, we do like to try out these quick-build walkway improvements to try to carve out space to make pedestrians feel safer and be more comfortable. Here are some examples of some of the quick-build walkways we've trialed. Finally, this year, as part of Vision Zero, we were awarded about $3.5 million for a pilot safety project. We're looking at 50 high injury locations to pilot different safety tools, many of which have not been used locally or have only been used in limited settings. This project will demonstrate the capabilities of different tools as well as rapid flash beacons. If this is proven effective, it could enable the city to hopefully deploy more of these options across the island. And then full right-of-way reconstruction. We have continued to work on traffic safety using these more permanent builds, and here are some of the projects we've been working on. And that's it for the projects. In summary, DTS has been working on safety for a while now. You know, they say the best time to start your retirement fund is 10 years ago, and the next best time is today. And I feel the same way about planning for traffic safety. The work that DTS has been focusing on And the plans that we have now allow us to qualify for more traffic safety funding from different organizations. The work that we have done allows us to analyze what has been effective and how it can be improved. As systems and situations change, we'll have the documentation and the data to be able to understand where we came from and hopefully where we can go. I appreciate the opportunity to share with you all. Thank you for having us here. Questions?
Thank you. We can go straight to HPD next, members, if that's okay with you, and then we'll do a comprehensive or consolidated Q&A.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And as HPD comes up here, thank you so much, DTS, for presenting, especially on the METCD, especially for those who do not know about it. It was very informative, and I know that we have this city DTS here, but we did also ask HDOT's Director Stiffen to be here. He was unable to make it today, but hopefully we'll have a part 2 about this discussion with the state's perspective. And I know that council members have also expressed an interest in learning more about the METCD, so I'm glad that Kelly mentioned that we could ask more, as well as both Renee and Jermaine mentioned that as well. And so that's why I scheduled that informational briefing about the MUTCD. It is unfortunate that the members couldn't be here to be able to hear about this, and hopefully they may be able to make it to ask questions about the MUTCD once HUD Acting Chief is PAL with this presentation. With that, I would like to kick it over to Acting Chief Vanek.
Hi, good morning, Chair Cordero, committee members, Mahalo for providing me with this opportunity to give you a presentation on traffic safety and what we're doing about it, and I guess what the public can do about it too, yeah. So, let's begin. So today's presentation is going to focus on how we can work together to make our roads safer. HPD is committed to reducing traffic fatalities by targeting the top 3 contributing factors, and those 3 factors are speeding, impaired driving, and distracted driving. So let's take a look at our numbers. So in 2024, we had 43 fatalities at the same time as now, compared to this year in 2025, that's jumped to 74. I know the number is not up there, but the total for 2024, we had 52. So we've already, at this time this year, surpassed the total number that we've had last year. But at this time last year, we've had 43, so we're at 74 now. So nearly double, right? If you look at the numbers of the reasons and the different numbers of what, I'll point some things out, right? So notably, pedestrian fatalities increased from 14 to 24. Motorcycle rider deaths nearly doubled. These numbers, they're not just numbers. I know you see them as numbers, but these are real lives, right, lost. These are our neighbors, our friends, family members. That's what these numbers represent. So what this next slide is a breakdown by district. This is patrol districts, not council districts. Do you want me to go over, you guys are familiar with our patrol districts? Okay, everyone's familiar with our patrol districts. Okay, so districts 4 and 5 account for nearly 23% of all fatalities. Highways are the most dangerous, and followed by surface roads. So for those of you who are not sure what surface roads are not freeways, not highways, right? Highways like Cam Highway or Kamehameha Highway, right? Sorry, excuse me. Like Highway. Freeways are like H1, H2, right? Surface streets are all other streets. Okay. This is just a visual representation of a map of where all of those occurred. Some of the dots, so if you were actually to sit there and count all the dots, there's not as many dots as we have motor vehicle collisions or fatalities, But that's because some of these dots, there were multiple fatalities, right, at these locations. So in regards to speeding citation, which is one of the 3 highest contributing factors, right? Nearly 22,000 citations have already been issued this year. That's, so in 2024, HPD issued over 25,000 citations, but this year already, and we're in November, right? So if we keep that pace, we're going to well exceed that number, but we've issued almost 22,000. So we're well on track to exceed our numbers last year, and I'll show you additional numbers of citations we've issued. But not only just speeding citations, but excessive speeding. And the reason why excessive speeding is important is because typically the faster people are driving, the higher likelihood or the higher the potential is that they're gonna cause a serious collision, right? Which usually would or could lead to a fatality. So for excessive speeding, which is defined as driving 80 miles or more in speed, or 30 miles or more over the posted speed limit, reckless driving, racing on the highway, these are all actually arrestable offenses. From January to October this year, in 2024, at that time, actually in 2024, there were 213 arrests. So far this year, there have been 565 arrests. So that's something that we're focusing on. And we've issued over 4,500 citations so far this year. So that's something that we're focusing on. These behaviors not only endanger the driver, but they also endanger everyone else on the road. They affect everyone on the road. So in regards to all moving violations, not just speeding, from January through October last year, over 95,000 citations were issued. So far this year, almost 125,000 citations were issued. So our enforcement efforts have been focused, especially taking into consideration the number of fatalities that we're looking at. If I could go back, sorry, just to make a point. I had said that one of the main contributing factors is impaired driving, right? But if you take a look here, even though this is slide 3, I believe, even though alcohol and drugs this year account for 24 of the 74, it is down from last year. I mean, it's a high number. But if you look at and then going back to the slide that I just came from, if you look at our enforcement when it comes to impaired driving, our enforcement is actually up too. So I don't know if there's a direct correlation there, but that's something just to take a note of, right? So if there's one thing that we can say is that, people, although, it's still, like I said, it's still a contributing factor, 24 deaths, right? But it's less than what we've seen last year. So that's a good thing, but still we need people to do better. And our enforcement is up as well, so. Other contributing factors, and many fatalities actually involve preventable behaviors. So for example, 19 people weren't wearing helmets, 14 people weren't wearing seatbelts, 16 pedestrians didn't use a crosswalk. So I'm not saying that if these people did these things that the fatality wouldn't have occurred, but I mean, these are things, simple things that maybe had they worn their seatbelt or had they put a helmet on or had they been in a crosswalk, I mean, that could have potentially prevented a fatality. So these are really preventable behaviors. I mean, 20, 34, I mean, really, if you look at the numbers, that's pretty considerable. Out of 74, if all of these individuals had that prevented, our number would have been considerably lower, is what I'm saying. So, you know, another issue is distracted driving. It's a growing concern. The law prohibits the use of handheld electronic devices while driving. It includes phones, laptops, even gaming devices. Really, a moment of distraction can lead to a lifetime of regret. On August 25th, we actually launched, in response to what we saw as increasing traffic fatalities, we launched a Safer Roads Together campaign. We did this to address the rise in traffic fatalities. The campaign's objective was to increase public awareness, promote safe behaviors, and reinforce HPD's commitment to the roadway safety through coordinated outreach and operations. And later on, I'll go into a little bit more details of what we did. Other programs that we had ongoing are our Say Hi program. So in this program, we reach out to preschools and elementary school children to introduce them to what traffic safety is all about. They are able to engage with police officers. Our traffic division is involved in a bike ride program. You know, a lot of kids ride their bicycles to school. We actually had an incident out in on the west side in Eva where a youth who was riding to school actually died as a result of, you know, his riding. And so this is an important program that we have. Also, we have our Citizens Police Academy, which goes over speeding and racing, reckless driving, driving impaired. So these are all programs that we have ongoing. We started a campaign with all of our patrol officers called Take 30. It's an initiative that's happening island-wide. And this doesn't preclude them from doing more traffic enforcement, but we asked them for at least 30 minutes throughout their shift to engage in traffic enforcement and traffic engagement. And the difference is that enforcement obviously is issuing citations, but engagements also is, you know, in education as well. So it's both enforcement and engagements. So we've asked island-wide for our patrol officers to do this at least 30 minutes during each of their shifts. And we also do focus enforcement around the island. So our fourth watch officers, those are the officers who are finished with their field training, but they haven't yet been assigned permanently to up somewhere on the island. And also our traffic division officers who are primarily assigned to traffic responsibilities. They focus their traffic enforcement efforts in areas where we've seen a high number of critical and fatal collisions. So all of those different dots on the map, they go to those places. So what have we seen as a result of all of our efforts? So what this slide here shows is from September, and why September? Because we started our campaign in late August, right? So we started tracking from September. So from September to earlier this month, in early November, HPD issued nearly 19,000 citations, made over 330 arrests related to traffic violations. And in pedestrian enforcement, we saw over 1,100 citations. I mean, I think that these numbers show our commitment to proactive enforcement. So that's what we're doing. This slide here, like I was saying earlier, you know, our Safer Roads Together is we're also reaching out to the public through digital platforms. We have our Traffic Safety Tuesdays, which I think actually some of you participated in, right? This is a couple of examples of the one on the left is our lieutenant in traffic division, Tamira Torres. This is one of the 11 ads that we did on social media, and it some of the different topics you see there, like motorcycle safety, e-bike laws, pedestrian safety. On the right, I think if you can see in the handout that you have, I know it's a little small on the screen, but it lists all of the different locations where we have sign waving I think Councilmember Wire, you joined us at one of the events. I think some of the other council members joined us all of these different events, but typically we go to schools, we go on the side of the road, and it's in every single council district. So we make it a point to get out there and make sure that the public is aware of all of the different things that they should be doing. But besides going out there and waving signs, you know, and doing this social media, we do traditional media too. We've been on Hawaii News Now, KHON, actually all of the KITV. We worked both broadcast and print. I believe Civil Beat, we did a interview with Civil Beat. Honolulu Magazine covered us. We also, even myself, I did a joint press conference with all of our partners, with the mayor, to coincide with going back to school with traffic safety. So there's been a lot of coverage as far as what the public can do to help, and their responsibility to keep the public, to keep everyone safe driving on the roads. And then this is just kind of one of the ads. We took a concept from back in the 80s and 90s, you know, don't drink and drive. If you're going out tonight, so are we. That kind of PSA type activity. So this is just a picture of our traffic division. And they're responsible for a lot of the enforcement that you've seen, some of the numbers that you've seen in this presentation. So I just wanted to highlight them as well. So really, so I guess kind of the question is, well, what can the public do, right? It can't be only the police doing this, right? Because our program is called Safer Roads Together, right? It doesn't say Safer Roads Police. It says Safer Roads Together. So really, this is what the public can do. I mean, really constantly stay aware when you're driving. A lot of people, you know, driving has become kind of second nature for people, and they've almost become complacent. But really, stay aware when you're driving. Pay attention to your surroundings. Also, be emotionally in control when you're driving. Have thoughtful planning. A lot of times when you change your plans of driving last minute, that can lead to collisions, changing lanes last minute, not planning ahead. That could really make a difference, lead to critical collisions. Obey traffic signs and laws, really. Lines on the road, they actually mean something. Double solid lines, you don't cross those. Really, they're there for a reason. Pedestrian awareness, I mean, even pedestrians themselves, even if you're in the right, you're not gonna win against a car. Sometimes it's okay if you lose the battle as long as you win the war. If the car wants to turn in front of you, even if you're in the right, just let them turn, you know what I mean? Don't try and win against the car. Personal distractions, like I said, distracted driving is not good. I mean, eating a plate lunch while driving is not a great idea. Putting on makeup or obviously using a cell phone. And of course, if you're gonna drink, don't drive, plan ahead, right? And then finally, I'll leave you with this, and I said this before, is it's really about making good choices. You know, I've talked to you about what the police has been doing. We issue citations, but really the citations is there not to punish people, right? It's really to act as a deterrent. And if the reason people slow down, or if the reason people don't cross over that solid line, or the reason people don't run that red light is because they're afraid that the police officer might be there and they don't want to get a ticket, then fine, I'll take that every single day. But really, you know, we want people to drive that way because it's the right thing to do. Because by driving that way, they're going to keep someone safe. And it's not just someone, they're keeping the people safe who are out there that we love. They're keeping, and I've said this before on social media, I've said this before in traditional media, the people that we love out there are literally my family members, your family members. They're people that we know. They're not just this buzzword of community or the public. They're our actual family members. And so if we need to get out there as the police and scare people into driving correctly, then fine, we'll do that because that's our job. But what I'd rather have people do is get out there and drive with aloha and drive correctly because that's the right thing to do. And like I said, I mean, it's our campaign, right? Safer roads together, drive with aloha, right? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Acting Chief Vanek. Members, we are now in discussion and we are able to take up questions for both DTS as well as HPD. I would like to see if there's any questions first for the MUTCD though, if that's okay. So members, if you could go to the presentation area of where the MUTCD is. Does anyone have any questions about that first for the members? Okay, I will, I guess, go first with the MUTCD. So with the MUTCD, well, I'll ask the first, and I don't know who may be able to answer. So if there are certain things that we think may need to be changed, let's say there's changes and we see how thick that book was, right? And if, let's say, you as the city's transportation department sees that something should be changed and is not working for an island community like ours, how can we affect that change in the MUTCD? Like, I can't think of an example, but would that have to go through an act of Congress? Would we have to lobby the US DOT, Department of Transportation? What would that be like?
Well, it's a little complicated question because it's a big manual and there's lots of different provisions in it. Number one, I'll make it clear that it's not mandatory. It is a regulatory thing that protects the city, though, because it sets up a standardized way that we do traffic control. If we deviate from it and something happens, the public will go after the city for potentially for not following the regular standards. Now there are within the MUTCD there are provisions that you can experiment with certain things. You have to follow the guidelines, but there are ways that you can have an experimental program. I'll give an example of, right now the state does speed bumps over multi-lane roadways. That's not really MUTCD standard. There is a lot of evidence that's already been generated locally that shows, however, it's very effective. So it is not it's a cookbook, but you can deviate in the recipes to certain ways. It was primarily developed. It has an application to all kinds of streets, including our surface streets. But it was developed by AASHTO, which is the American Association of State Transportation Officials. It is, I don't want to say it's highway oriented, but there are other alternatives that we talked about here, like NACTO, that are specifically designed to be things that cities can consider. And I think Kelly gave the example of the green paint. That wasn't MUTCP, but that was NACTO. So we do have the opportunity in an intelligent and a thoughtful way to do some things that are locally. What you can't do is they can't have a yellow stop sign or something like that, because the stop signs used to be yellow. I mean, that was changed by the Manual of Uniform Traffic Control Devices. So now those kind of things are meant to be standardized across the country. When you go to a foreign country, the signs don't look exactly the same. Mm-hmm. So it is the American standard. It's pretty much the Canadian standard, pretty much the Mexican standard too. But each of those countries has their own manual. And then when you get to Europe, of course, or to Asia, some of the traffic control signs look foreign to us because they are foreign. I don't know if that answers the question, but
yeah, no, understood.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that makes sense because if we do travel and we see, oh, why can't it be this way? I understand that, and I understand now that it is more regulatory. But of course, at the city level or locally, then how does that play into our guiding policy documents like the Oahu General Plan and the other documents that like everything falls under, whether it be development plans or even does it then guide or regulatorily guide the ped plan, the bike plan? Like, how does it skew outward?
Well, in a default situation, we would choose to follow the manual in all respects. As I say, sometimes things are, you can do things a little bit different, either because they're not included in the manual or because you have a particular program. California has a whole section because the manual allows state supplements. We don't have a state supplement in Hawaii. California does, and some other states may have a state supplement where they do have license to deviate from and do their, publish their own standards for certain things. Not the case in Hawaii, though.
Okay, thank you. If there's no other questions for MUTCD, I'm going to touch on complete streets and Vision Zero a bit, especially about the yield rates for the before and after having speed humps and raised crosswalks. And I know that some, and it's really great to see the yield rates there, but also within complete streets as well as other guiding documents. We do know that there, over the past 5 or 6 years, that there have been intersections where crosswalks have been blacked out. We've seen that in my district, but across the island. And I was wondering if we've looked at the yield rates for those types of intersections to determine those types of actions as well.
Our multi-lane uncontrolled crosswalk guidelines are an evolving document. I think that's what we're, excuse me. I think that's what we're all talking about, right? We're talking about the 4 or 5 lane roads, no stop sign, no traffic signal. Those are some of the crosswalks that we have removed over the last, I don't know, I mean, we've always adjusted crosswalks, right? Adding a crosswalk here, changing it, moving it. That's just sort of normal practice for us. But we have removed some of those. We are continuing to look at best practices and study our quick build solutions to figure out more tools to add for those challenging crosswalks. So I'll give you an example. Several years ago, we sort of knew MUTCD was going to be endorsing the RRFB. We weren't really using them much here, obviously, at all. And we saw that there was an opportunity to use this kind of new, emerging, not even new, but starting to be very documented tool with this crosswalk problem that we have. So what we did is we kind of reopened our crosswalk guidelines and looked at the data that was out there about the tools, and we actually updated those to make our RFBs appropriate for a lot of our very typical cross sections. So the 4-lane, the 5-lane cross sections. And we are now starting to implement those in a lot of places. We also, there's new research about other tools. The raised crosswalk is one, right? The raised crosswalks on multi-lane streets is not something that the US has a lot of experience with. And we really are grateful for our state DOT for trying this strategy and piloting it because it has allowed us to study it. The yield rates are so good that we may be considering amending our crosswalk guidelines again to add tools like that. So what we do is we look out in the data, the literature that's out there, we see what the yield rates are for different tools, and we're continuing to sort of look for new tools to address these challenging situations that you're talking about, and it's an ongoing process for us. So we appreciate the problem and the challenge, and we're trying to restore those as well. Like I know near the Kalihi post office, for example, we were able to restore that with an island, and we now have that program for an RRFB. So we're, those that are really missing by the community, we're trying to reestablish those. Jermaine didn't talk much, but about the Date La'au location as well. That was another crosswalk that had been removed. When we put in the RRFB, we were able to remark it. So as we get more tools, we can kind of remark some of these crosswalks.
Thank you for that information. What was the document that you first mentioned, multi-lane?
Okay, so table 5-1 is actually in the Complete Streets manual. It's in our Honolulu Complete Streets manual. If you go online, you look for Complete Streets guidance, that page will come up, and there's actually an addenda from the last time we amended it. And to be honest, we'll probably amend it again. And so that's where we keep that updated guidance.
I see. Thank you very much for that explanation. I really appreciate it. And you read my mind of which blacked out crosswalk I was thinking of. Thank you. Okay. All right. Are there any questions regarding Complete Streets and the Vision Zero? Councilmember Wire.
Thank you, Jerry. Mahalo for coordinating the presentation. And extremely grateful for DTS being out in the community, doing meetings, and of course HPD the same with particularly the work with our youth. And I know I didn't make it to every sign waving, but we got to at least one in each district. So was really grateful for that. So the first question is for DTS, and it's pretty simple and straightforward, and then I'll give you a general one, but Chair, it's kind of out for whoever has expertise. So regarding the 3.5 million for the 50 high injury locations, I was just curious if we had a list yet or if that's a work in progress. And then second question, in case you haven't put out to everyone, just generally, we're looking at all these different factors, distractions, speeding, substance use, which thankfully, like you mentioned, went down. I'm just curious if there's any insight on the underlying changes. Like, is this just a fact of society growth, how we're incorporating technology, and next generation be more on their phones than ever? Like I see folks on the road, like even on the sidewalk, you like bump into them because they're just on their phone. Or are there other factors? I know we've had e-bike usage go up. So just curious about that. Like if we're seeing changing habits in folks, or there's other things that are leading to the increases. Yeah.
The first question is the easier question, less philosophical. We do have tentative locations for the 50. We are amenable to adjusting them still if there are severe issues at a particular location that need to be addressed. The main guidelines is it has to be a high injury location, right? So it is a little bit separate money than, say, like our school, Safe Routes to School stuff, right? Fortunately, the streets, that are right next to a lot of our schools are not high injury locations. They tend to be our bigger roads, the California avenues, for example, where we'll be focusing that work. So if you have, any intersections that you want us to consider, please send them to us, and we can consider that, particularly if it's a high crash location. We're also trying to find a balance a little bit between signalized and uncontrolled, so that may be part of our consideration as well. I'm standing here, so I will share my 2 cents on why, we seem to be making such great gains in traffic safety for people inside vehicles. Right? I mean, you see those charts kind of go down over time, but not so much for people outside of vehicles. I shared a little bit earlier sort of about just the development patterns in our country, right? Really prioritize the fast and efficient movement of vehicles. We are now faced with vehicles that move very fast, right? When we had stick shift cars, we had, didn't have air conditioning, you just went slower, you had your arm out the door and you were, didn't want to go all the way to 40 because then you'd have to shift back down and shift back up, and who has, the energy for all that? And people were going slower, and they could make eye contact with people in their community, they could wave, hey, how's it, whatever. You see the kids, you let them go. I really think vehicle technology is a part of this problem. We are now encased in these incredible bubbles where we can't hear anything. I mean, Teslas go 0 to 60 in like several seconds, right? And so we don't have agency over that. We're just trying to enforce better behavior and build our roads where, you know, really terrible decisions maybe are not so possible. But, you know, and of course the e-mobility device technology advances are a part of that as well. But I think that is also related to how we built our communities, right? Like kids have a hard time keeping up on a regular bike because cars are moving so fast and we don't have bike lanes yet in a lot of places. And so these e-bikes are like, you know, a way for them to feel agency and a way for them to move about these auto-oriented communities that we created. So I think there's obviously a ton of factors, but I'm very curious in the feedback of my leadership in HPD as well.
Aloha, thank you, Councilmember, for that question. I think just to echo what you just heard, anecdotally speaking, of course, I would agree. I think there's been a bunch of societal changes. I think the speed at which everyone moves and the speed at which people expect things to occur is a lot quicker. And that's reflective in even the way people drive. As you can see, our enforcement when it comes to speeding, of course, yes, we're out there more frequently, but just the fact that we're issuing as many more speeding citations as we are just goes to show that there's that, in my opinion, that many more people speeding. Does that mean that we're issuing more speeding citations because we're focusing on it more? Possibly. Or does it mean that we're issuing more speeding citations because more people are speeding? Possibly. I mean, we won't know. But the fact of the matter is, I think just as each one of this room is out there driving, it just seems like, I mean, it's hard not to notice, it just seems like people just drive faster now. So anecdotally speaking, you ask what are some of the reasons for that? I think just kind of looking with your eyes out there, it just seems like people drive different now. What's the reason for that? It's hard to say. I mean, I don't know if it's an easy thing to hear, but maybe just people not caring as much anymore. So it really, like how I said in my presentation, it's really going to take behavioral changes. People need to stop. They need to say, you know what, I need to change my attitude about how I drive.
Appreciate that. Mahalo. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councilmember Meyer. Great questions. And Councilmember DeSantis-Tam?
Thank you. I wanted to, first of all, thank you for all these presentations. I think they're very helpful in helping us and the public to understand what's going on to improve pedestrian safety. I wanted to focus on something that was mentioned earlier by Kelly under the MUTCD, which is autonomous vehicles. Recognizing that Waymos are now in probably about 15 cities around the country. Amazon is rolling out their version. This is something that's likely to arrive here in the next few years, whether we like it or not. And so I wanted to ask, what are we doing to prepare for that? Do we have a scheme of regulations that we're working on to allow for Waymos to operate here within certain parameters? I certainly don't want it to be a free-for-all like we had with the scooters 10 years ago, but it's going to be here, whether we like it or not, and we need a regulatory scheme that makes sense. So are we working on that? And then are there other new technologies or new interventions that we're working on separate from that that we might want to start thinking now about having policies around?
You're absolutely correct that I think this autonomous vehicle will be here sooner than we think. And I think that we probably would look first toward, from a regulatory point of view, we'd probably look toward our State Department of Transportation first to look at the regulatory side. On the technology side, on our city streets here on Oahu, we are in the process over the next 5 years of replacing every traffic signal controller on the island. and we will be replacing them with controllers that are future-proof to accommodate autonomous vehicles. There'll be vehicle to traffic signal communications possible and other things like that. We have in rough numbers, we have about 750 signalized intersections on our city streets, and on our state highways, we have probably another 220 on our state highways. So somewhere in the 900 range of that, and those are scheduled for replacing all of them over the next few years. That's an ongoing project. Procurement has already been done. The contractors have been selected, and we're just about ready to start doing that. I believe the priority will be on the west side, where we, that's where our state partners want to start, is on the west side. But those, we won't be using all of the features of those initially, but they are equipped for that ultimate one. I take a long view on traffic safety. You know, if you go back 80 years, 70 years, we had about 70,000 deaths on our highways. And we've seen a long-term reduction of that all the way to COVID. Now, unfortunately, after COVID, we've seen a reversal and an increase in the national rate of highway deaths. And we stand out in the United States as an outlier on that, because other countries have continued to reduce traffic deaths on their highways. Not every country, but most developed countries for sure have been able to do that. So it's good that over the last couple of years, it looks like that reversing trend is again maybe going to switch back and not go up, but it's very alarming to see. And I think that some of the things that both the chief and Renee had talked about are things that, you know, we have made these very, very safe boxes that go very, very fast. And so we protected the people inside. We also have a love affair with pickup trucks that have very, very high end. So when you hit somebody with a pickup truck, you're not just going to break their legs and have them flop over. You're going to kill them if you're going at speed, because of just the way the trucks will interact with the human body. So all of those things, I think, have probably have an impact. My belief is that the technology will continue to drive down the rate over time, and we will have to figure out how we can do it. I wouldn't want to. I think our streets here are kind of unique. We're not connected to other states. A lot of our streets are very. We have a lot of substandard lanes, 10-foot lanes on freeways and so on. So I wouldn't want to be the first one to try it. But I have a self-driving car that'll drive on the freeway, and my friends tell me, do you trust it? And my answer is, I trust it more than me, because it has, it doesn't get distracted. It can brake, but it doesn't get distracted. It has all of those. So I believe that we will see continued improvement through technology over time.
Thank you. Members, do you have any other questions? Okay, thank you. I do have one other clarification as it relates to unmarked crosswalks, and then we'll move on to the action items. For unmarked crosswalks at intersections, we know that we've been asked this before, this has come up. Are they safe to cross? Is it legal for people to be crossing? And yeah, that's my question.
Hello again. Okay, so unless there's signs that say no ped crossing, it's legal to cross at any intersection, whether it's marked or unmarked. Sometimes when it's not marked, we feel pedestrians, you tend to be more cautious if there's no markings there. And we want that for everybody. But again, with distractions, people are on cell phones, we're listening to ear pods. Sometimes we're just distracted that we don't recognize. So we always try to teach our kiki, our kupuna, anyone who wants to have our pedestrian safeties, look both ways, left, right, left, and just be aware of where you're going. It doesn't mean it's not safe. It just means it doesn't have enough pedestrian activity for us to mark it. We do have guidelines. You need to have 20 peds in an hour, which is kind of high for us to mark a crosswalk there. But any of your situations, let us know. We can reevaluate it. Sometimes a new store opens or a bus stop gets moved, and maybe what wasn't there before now generates the traffic. We can look at it again. So if you have any concerns, let us know.
I see. Okay, so it can be, sorry, I know I said that was my last question, but as a follow-up to that, it would be also on a case basis if foot traffic increases.
So if there's a, every situation is case by case. So if there's a situation where there's a traffic signal, really close, we would rather have them walk at the traffic signal. It all depends how many lanes you're crossing. Mm-hmm. Is it a local street where it's just a neighborhood and it's only my residents and my neighbors on that street? Then of course that's a little different. It all depends on where the area is, how many lanes are we crossing, how much volume on that street.
And let's say there's been multiple injuries and or fatalities at and near that intersection. How is that data then shared between HPD and DTS? Do you already get the same data that HPD is already responding to?
So certain members of my staff have access to the paper management, which is the recording system that HPD has. Okay. So we can look up police reports. Before we had the access, we would have to look up the report numbers, make a list of them, send a paper copy to their records division. Their records division would have to pull every single report, print out a paper copy. I would get a stack of inter-office mail for one area of all these reports. Now that we can access their report, we can instantly look up the report. It's all PDF. We have access to it as well.
Well, thank you very much, both of you, both agencies for working together, all the agencies for working together.
So there's certain agencies who have that access. Oh, okay. So we're not allowed to share any of private information. Right. It's only for our own data. We don't write down any personal names, addresses, locations. We just use the crash data to do our crash diagrams, and it's just 2 arrows and show where the actual movements are. So we try to keep that private too. It's not for everyone in the general public to have that access. Yeah.
Understood. I know that I have all my action items before us still, so I do want to move on, but I just want to mahalo the different agencies for being here. I know that it takes even more than just your 2 agencies and of course collaboration with the state, but of course our city agencies as well. We know that 74 is way more, and even just 1 death and losing 1 person is more than what we should be dealing with. I also know that in addition to the driver's education, that there should be more education and reminders for everyone as like we grow up, obviously, whether it be whatever mode you're utilizing, whether it be on a bike, e-bike, if you're walking. So I'm looking forward to further discussions about that in the future. And once again, I am hoping to have HDOT director here for on the state's perspective on the increase in traffic fatalities, but also safety efforts that they've been making. And so knowing the yield rates getting better is also great to note and hear as well. So once again, mahalo. Seriously, thank you all for being here for that. Thank you. We'll now move on to, and I already did testimony, just in case anyone makes think about that. I already did that. It's closed. I do want to know, I'm now moving on to action items. We have agenda number 4, excuse me. For action, we have resolution 25-317. This resolution approves the Department of Transportation Services Bus and Paratransit Agency Safety Plan pursuant to 49 Code of Federal Regulations Part 673 and Federal Transit Administration requirements. This is also with Communications D80, Department of Communications D808, 2025. With us from the City Administration, we have Director Morton with the Department of Transportation Services.
And if I can, I'll take up both items. The next item, there's one item for bus and paratransit. The next item is similar, it's for
Okay.
our rail system.
Okay, wait, one moment. I will then restate my announcement of the action item, if that's okay?
Yeah.
All right, we are now going to be taking up agenda items number 4 and number 5, resolution 25-317, as well as resolution 25-309. And when we get to testimony, I will take up testimony for both. Okay, Director Martin.
Yes, these safety plans, they're not the first time you've seen them. We've had the rail one here, I think, in 23. The bus one was in 20. They are required documents under the Federal Transit Administration. In the last administration, there was significant changes made in the requirements for these. The most significant change was the real codification of the joint labor management portion and discussion of these plans. Requirement is that all modes must have a safety committee, which we've always had, but it sort of it specified that the labor component of that plan had to be selected by the relevant union, if there was a union, and that the plan itself has to be approved by the safety committee. So those are significant changes that are included in these two documents that you have today. The other difference on the two documents is that under federal transit law, the state safety oversight group at the State Department of Transportation have regulatory oversight over safety for rail, but not for bus at this point. And so they are separate documents for that reason. And also because the workforces are separate. Their workforce, one of them, the workforces is at Hitachi, the other is the workforce is at Oahu Transit Services. So for that reason, we chose to have separate documents. Happy to answer any questions that anyone has on either of the documents.
Sure. We have Councilmember DeSantis Tan.
Thank you, Chair. Both of these plans discuss reportable events. These are safety incidents at different levels of intensity. Could you talk about just the overall picture when it comes to these reportable events? Are they fairly minimal? Are they going down? Are there any that maybe require a little bit more attention from us to prevent in the future?
So that's a great question. The criteria for a safety event is one of three conditions. One is a person is transported away for medical care from the scene. And the second one is a fatality. And the third one would be damage or an incident has to have a minimum estimated damage of $25,000. For our Skyline system for the first 2 years, we had one safety event, and that was a bad fall on an escalator. We had two technical derailments that were inside the yard, and they were really part of a maintenance operation rather than something out for that. On the bus side, there are more safety events that are recorded, and the great majority of them are the result of people who fall down and injure themselves on the bus. And so I think, we've tried a number of things to try to address that, such as, you have the announcements that please hold on, the bus is going to start. The campaigns in the back about trying to inform motorists that if they were to pull in front of the bus, say to make a quick right turn and the bus had to slam on its brakes, that could be a kapuna that fell that had serious injury to their hips or those kind of things. And then, of course, in our operating procedures for the way our bus operators operate, to give more consideration to people that look like they're not really too stable, make sure that they get themselves situated before you pull away from a bus stop and those kind of things. Those are the things that I would say primarily the falls on the buses are the ones that would rise to the top of how do we lower the incidence of those.
Okay, thank you. In addition to Councilmember Dos Santos Tam's question, I have a question on when you anticipate, or when do you have to submit the plans by?
We got dinged for not meeting our deadline. We had to have it done by June 30th, and for unfortunate reasons, we didn't. But it's a kind of it doesn't have a consequence too much, but it was a finding in a review on recently from our triennial review. I think that report will probably be submitted to the council eventually. In fact, I know that Chair Waters already has a copy of the report, but it was a minor finding. But it was June 30th was the date. And the requirement is that the governing board, in this case the council, has to approve the report, which is why we're here today.
Okay, and now we are where we are. Okay, understood. Thank you. Members, any further questions about both both plans? No? Okay, thank you. We will now take up testimony for both action items number 4 and 5, resolutions 25-317, resolution 309. Are there any, we don't have any registered remote testifiers online, but is there anyone online who wishes to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, thank you. Seeing none, we don't have any registered in-person testifiers, but is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none, we are back in discussion. Members, any discussions on these 2 items? Okay, seeing none, members, okay, we'll go with the 4th item first. The chair recommends that resolution 25-317 be reported out for discussion. Any discussion, objection, for adoption, or be reported out for adoption, excuse me. Any discussions, objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward to action item number 5, we have resolution 25-309. This resolution approves the Department of Transportation Services Rail Agency Safety Plan for rail operations required by 49, yes, et cetera. So the chair then recommends that resolution 25-309 be reported out for adoption. Any discussion, objections or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Moving forward to Bill 73, 2025. This bill relates to transportation, amending certain provisions relating to traffic and vehicles. For further explanation, I will defer to the introducer of this bill. We have Councilmember Dos Santos Tam.
Thank you, Chair. Bill 73 is it's intended to be a fairly broad, almost omnibus bill to update our traffic code found in chapters 15, 15A, and 15B. Our traffic code dates to 1931, which is when the Uniform Traffic Code was distributed to municipalities and states around the country. This was also the year when the Ford Model A was the most popular car in the country, and this was 95 years ago. Sorry, this is 95 years ago, and it's time to update some of the provisions found therein. A lot of things in the traffic code since then have been taken up fairly thoroughly in state or federal law. The federal government, for example, regulates very strictly the kinds of equipment that all vehicles must have, taillights and stoplights and headlights, and all kinds of other things that were never envisioned in 1931 and never incorporated into our traffic code. Backup cameras are the latest things that are now required. There's also a number of just obsolete things in all throughout our traffic code. There's references to bicycle license plates, which we stopped doing a long time ago in favor of the little stickers. There's requirements for every new vehicle sold, not operated, but sold on our streets to have things like reflectors. Well, of course they do. The federal government requires this. And even if someone were to sell a vehicle without reflectors, according to our code, the fine is $15. So if Honolulu Ford were to, violate federal law, and I guess they would be in violation of our traffic code as well, and we would go fine them $15. Of course, this is all silly. And so there's a number of things in here that I think we need to use this bill as a vehicle to do. I'll note that there's also a number of provisions in Bill 73 about pedestrian malls, which are going to actually take up separately in Bill 48. There's things in there about our public parking garages. We used to categorize our public parking garages by using letters A through F. I don't really know what the scheme was, but there's still references to Class D and Class F parking garages. All of these things are a way of saying we do need to update our traffic code to reflect how we use cars today, not how we use cars in 1931. And then also, separately further down the line, when we get to a CD2 version, I'd like to take a look in a CD2 version at the various fines and fees that are in here. For example, customer services, basically our DMV department, which regulates things like safety inspections. This is regulated by the state. The state sets the fees for a safety check, but we still have references in here about how much the city can charge. We don't charge this anymore because the state does. And so for now, I'd like to actually have the committee defer the measure for now so we can do a CD1 that addresses a lot of these obsolete provisions, compares them with state and federal law to make sure that we're not preempted in some way. And for the things where we are preempted, we can maybe remove them from our code. And then in a future CD2, work on things like fines and fees.
Understood. Thank you very much, Councilmember DeSantos Tam. I know that we have received Departmental Communications 822 relating to support for Bill 73 and certain recommendations. So from the Department of Transportation Services. And so I guess since we are postponing this measure, I anticipate that the introducer of the bill will be looking at those recommendations and working with the department. Yeah? Okay, perfect. Okay, I would also like to welcome Councilmember, Councilmember Tupola online as well. Of course, I have to ask Councilmember Tupola, is there anyone with you in your location?
Hi, aloha chair. There's no one with me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for joining us online as well. Okay, we are on item number 6 right now, and we are calling for postponement, but I will take up remote testimony. We don't have any registered remote testifiers. Is there anyone online who wishes to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, seeing none. We will now proceed with in-person testimony. We don't have any registered in-person testifiers. Is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Okay, we have Mr. Hernandez. Please join us. State your name for the record.
Aloha and good morning. Eduardo Hernandez, Advocacy Director with the Hawaii Bicycling League. Want to take just a moment to thank our DTS and Complete Streets and HPD for their excellent presentation today, the focus on safety, and recognizing that this is a behavioral issue, and that's how at HBL we really look at it. We know that we can't legislate our way to safety. It really is going to require behavior change on behalf of everyone who uses our roads. I'd also like to thank a council member for introducing this measure. I did just have 2 recommendations written in my testimony regarding sidewalk mandatory fines for riding a bicycle in Waikiki. Earlier we had Kelly Akasaki talk about high injury locations, and as far as I'm aware, we have not had traffic fatalities caused by a bicycle on a Waikiki street. We have had traffic fatality on a Waikiki bike lane. So before we over criminalize our sidewalks, I think we need more protected bike lanes. Thank you very much for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for summarizing. Members, do we have any questions for the testifier? Okay, seeing none, thank you for your recommendation. Okay, so is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none, we will now close testimony. Members, we are back in discussion. Seeing none, members, we will be postponing Bill 73. Bill 73. Moving forward, moving to agenda item number 7, Bill 71, 2025. This bill relates to shared streets. For further explanation, I will defer to the introducer of the bill, Councilmember DeSantos Tam. And also, we do have a proposed CD1 version, OCS 2025-0896 of the bill submitted by myself. For your information, a summary of the amendments are listed on the agenda. Councilmember DeSantos Tam.
Thank you, Chair. This bill is fairly self-explanatory. It creates a way of creating shared streets on our island. I'll note that if the bill moves forward, I'd prefer to take up in a future version that the report that's described in 15-blank.7 be rolled into the existing Complete Streets report. But to set the stage for this bill, this is not a new idea, of course. State law for a long time, and this goes actually to the state's version of the traffic code in HRS 291-163. It describes something called play streets, which, if you imagine, I'm sure everyone's kind of seen pictures of like kids in Brooklyn or the Bronx, and they like open up the fire hydrants and like play in the streets in the summer. That's really kind of what that was aimed at back in the day, as far as my research can tell. But it basically aligns with this idea that streets can be more or less closed to vehicles to allow other users to, use the street as a priority. The state legislature last session passed HCR 177, calling for a summer streets program. And so I think the alignment is there. I'll note the testimony from DTS, and I'm curious as to what authority they currently have that would allow them to do this, because so far we haven't found that, but there probably are streets in Honolulu where this sort of thing is appropriate. I can think of Kekalike Street in my district is one, maybe in front of the old post office downtown. That kind of functions as a shared street already. People just park and like kind of walk wherever to go to the post office. There's lots of other areas. Maybe in Waikiki, like Lemon or Cartwright, which has all the food trucks. Like people just sort of use it as a shared street already. So anyway, I'm curious as to DTS's ability to do it already, and if so, great, let's get started.
Okay, thank you very much. We will now move to testimony. We don't have any registered remote testifiers, but is there anyone online who wishes to testify?
Chair, there are none.
Okay, we don't have any registered in-person testifiers, but is there anyone in person who wishes to testify? Okay, we have Mr. Hernandez.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councilmember, for introducing the bill. You have my testimony before you. I'll just quickly say, broadly, the concept is also known as open street. It began decades ago in Colombia, known as Ciclovia. They have these events in cities all over the world. In Mexico City, every Sunday, miles and miles of city streets are closed and used just for bicycles. In New York City, in the summertime, Park Avenue is closed from approximately the mid-70s all the way to the Brooklyn Bridge, and it's all for people walking and biking and rolling. New York City has done an economic impact study that proves that, and they've expanded this beyond Manhattan, that they've compared it to control streets that don't have this. And they've demonstrated economic activity has increased as a result of closing the streets. Hawaii Bicycling League just had our Honolulu Century Ride. We had worked with DTS to close Kalanianaʻoli Highway from the Hanauma Bay to Sandy Beach, and it was only for people riding bikes. We only did it for 2 hours, but if you can imagine, if we could do that on the day when Hanauma Bay is closed.
Hernandez, may I ask you summarize or try to end your testimony, please?
Yes, it was a fantastic experiment. We'd love to see it expanded. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Before I move forward to discussion, I do have to note for Bill 73, I have to note that I postponed it, Chair postponed it to a date and time to be determined by the Chair. Okay, thank you. All right, no, wait, hold on. No, I don't have to do that. I don't have to do that. Okay, thank you. All right, moving forward, we are going to discussion. Councilmember Dos Santos Tam, do you want to have DTS? I know that you brought up a query as it relates to their testimony.
Yeah, I think we have some time to work on this. Again, Kekalike Street, for example, in Chinatown, we probably won't need a shared street till the rail station opens. But I think that we can look at at how we can encourage these sorts of things, especially in the context of our previous presentations on the MUCTD and Complete Streets and Vision Zero and all of that.
Yeah, okay, do you want me to comment? First, on our ability to regulate safe streets, we could do that through a couple of ways that aren't prohibited. We do have the power to set speed limits at a very low level. That's one power that we could have. I don't have it in my testimony, but I believe that it also would probably be worthwhile to consider whether there's any places in the state code that sort of collide with the idea of that. And primarily, I think in this, and this is a Corporation Council really question, but I think one part of the bill says that the pedestrian would have the right of way versus the statewide code. So I think that there's probably a need to just do some legal research over whether this conflicts with the state code, somewhat the same way that we had the issue over e-bikes and other things, definitional issues and those things between the state code. From the concept, we're very supportive. And I want to make that clear that we're certainly not out here to oppose the concept of shared streets. We're very supportive of the concept. I think the examples that were cited were all good potential places where this would make a lot of sense.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions for the director? I don't have any questions specifically, but to the introducer, I know that we do have, it is just first reading. Would you like to continue the conversation and bring it to public hearing?
Yeah, why don't we do that? And that way we get more feedback from the public. Again, in the context of having this discussion about just street safety, the increasing number of fatalities on our roadways, I think public hearing would be helpful on this measure, and then we can work on it in a second committee along with DTS.
Thank you. And we do have the posted CD1 once again. It is at OCS 2025-0896/11/13/2025 817 AM. And with that mentioned, the chair recommends that Bill 71-2025 be amended to the posted CD1 with the OCS number that I just mentioned. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, the bill has been amended to a CD1. The chair then recommends that Bill 71-2025 CD1 be reported out for passage on second reading and scheduling of a public hearing. And I look forward to the discussions we will have back in committee. Moving forward, okay, any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, moving forward to Bill 42-2025 CD1. This bill relates to taxi cabs. For further explanation, I will defer to the introducers of the bill. We have both Councilmember Tupola and Wire.
Aloha, Chair. Thank you so much. I want to thank Councilmember Wire for partnering with me on this. I definitely have worked on this for many years. This is, I don't know what iteration of the bill. And I do want to thank Director Hashiro for being a part of this and assisting in the verbiage, as well as going back and forth with us on the legal language. We have been working with stakeholders, and we feel like this is a good way for us to move forward so that there's not over-regulation by the city and that they can actually operate in the free market and be competitive, since we know that TNCs are abundant, Ubers, Lyfts, and so we want to make sure that the few taxi cab industries that we have still in our county are able to thrive and still operate as a local business. So I'll defer to Councilmember Wire if he has any comments, but this should be hopefully the last committee draft that we have.
Mahalo, Jerry. I want to echo those sentiments from Councilmember Tupola. Of course, mahalo her for working on this, as she mentioned, for years, and grateful for Director Hashiro's support. I did see the communication, and then, of course, the stakeholders that have been advocating for this measure. And yeah, just totally agree. I mean, it's an opportunity really to level the playing field for local businesses, local drivers, and ensure that, you know, we're not, we're looking out for their interests. So Appreciate, Chair, your work on this as well. Mahalo.
Thank you both committee members, and that was a great point about leveling the playing field there. With that, I do want to go to, before we go to discussion, I do want to go to testimony. Okay, for Bill 42, we have 2 registered remote testifiers. We have Max Sword. If Max is on, I don't see him on, but I'll go with the second testifier. We had Ryan Naka, and then I'll call for Max thereafter. Okay, so we'll go with Ryan Naka.
Hello, Chair, members of the council. My name is Ryan Naka, representing Charlie's Taxi. I'm testifying in strong support of Bill 42. For decades, our taxi industry has operated under outdated regulations, making it hard for local drivers to compete, hard for companies to modernize, and even harder for our residents and visitors to receive reliable, safe transportation. And Bill 42 is an important step towards fixing that. This bill updates the rules so that taxi drivers and companies can operate on a more level playing field with competitors while still maintaining high safety standards that our community expects. It supports local small businesses, gives drivers more flexibility, ultimately provides riders, especially kupuna, people with disabilities and families without cars, more dependable options. Honolulu needs a transportation system that's fair, modern, responsive, and responsive to community needs. Mahalo for your time, your work on this measure, and your commitment to improving mobility. Mahalo to Councilmembers Tupolo, Councilmember Wire, Director Hashiro for your commitment to the taxi industry. Mahalo.
Thank you very much. Members, are there any questions for, okay, so we have Councilmember DeSantos, Tam. Ryan, we have a question for you.
Thank you, Ryan. I appreciate your comments on this issue. I know we've been working on this for a long time. Earlier in this hearing, we talked about Waymo and the potential for additional disruptive technologies to arrive. Have you and the other taxi companies, given any thought to the prospect of autonomous taxis being on our streets in the next few years and how that would impact the traditional taxi industry?
Yeah, I can't say that we've spoken with other taxi companies about it, but internally we've had many discussions about it, right? You have a lot of these neighborhoods, such as Ward Village, where there aren't designated drop-off areas. So even with Uber and Lyft right now, they're dropping off in the middle of the road, which creates huge safety concerns, especially with bike lanes, you have medians, you have planters that people are walking through. So there's a lot of issues already without, companies like Waymo. Now you introduce that without the designated drop-off areas. Plus you also, like Director had mentioned earlier, with human error, right? And technology is still improving. So you have sort of all of these elements that have not been perfected yet, and also policies around that don't necessarily exist. So it is a concern, something that we are tracking, and hopefully the council can kind of support all moving parts in that.
Thank you very much. Great question and great response, Ryan. Okay, if there's no other questions, then I'll call on the first testifier just in case. Okay, so Max Sword. Okay, seeing none, I'll keep it open until I close testimony. Is there anyone else online who wishes to testify? Okay, seeing none, we will now move to in-person testimony. We don't have any registered in-person testifiers, but is there anyone else in person who wishes to testify? Director, you like talk again? Or talk? Nah? No? Okay. Director Hashiro.
I just wanted to echo what Councilmember Tupola and Wire stated earlier, that there's been a lot of discussion with a lot of stakeholders, and Ryan Naka and Charlie's Taxi also. So I'm just glad to see this moving forward and appreciate it.
Thank you very much for your testimony and for your collaboration with everyone. Thank you. Okay. Next, if there's no one else in person, I will call for Max Sword again, and seeing none, we will now close testimony. Members, we are now in discussion. I know that both the introducers spoke already, but we can push this forward to, okay. The chair recommends that Bill 42, 2025, CD1 be reported out for passage on third reading. Any discussion, objections, or reservations? Hearing none, so ordered. Okay, members, I know it was a long meeting, but I thank you all for your participation, and there being no further business, this meeting is adjourned.